Well, first thing I want to say is, hey, TDF fans, welcome to this meeting of the minds, as we like to say at the theater. My name's Greg Edelman, and you are?
I'm Paul Alexander Nolan.
And it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I mean, if this is how we need to set aside time to spend time with each other, Greg, off stage, I'm happy to do it.
I know, it's true. We always say we're going to do it. Well, as they asked us to do it,
Yes.
I'm going to sort of describe myself. I don't know. How do I describe myself? How do I describe myself?
Well, Greg, I would start by saying your name is spelled with two G's at the end of your name, and you're an extremely handsome, whitish, gray-haired man. Parted on the side, straight hair, with one of the best voices in the biz.
Okay.
That's how I describe you.
And I would describe you. We're sort of reversing this. You're a charming fellow with a big smile and lovely sparkling eyes, and you're about I don't know, 85 years younger than me. But you also have a brilliant voice, and you're a brilliant actor, and you've got a really sparkling soul. So that's who you are to me. So hey, and guess what? I have a little cheat script down here that I can say stuff. So we're Paul and we are co-stars in the new musical Water for Elephants. It's on Broadway at the Imperial Theater. And I play Mr. Jankowski. It says here, I'm going to say what it says because it's actually quite well written. A man wistfully looking back on his life with the circus. I think that's a very concise statement. And what about you? What do you?
Well, before I move on from the description of myself, I just want to describe that I am in my Broadway dressing room right now. So if anybody's looking there, you can see some art. I like art. Greg also enjoys art. Sorry to take a slight divergence here from your very good introduction to the show, Greg.
Thank you.
You know, both of our rooms feature art, and you know, we also get to do art for a living. So I am in my dressing room in New York, and you might hear some honks and sirens and all that, whereas Greg looks to be in a very nice home somewhere in the Bahamas.
Yes. No, just put the pile of money over there. No, I'm in my breakfast room. So yeah, I'm just sitting here. That's my.
Is your lunchroom different?
Well, I got a little thumbs up.
Oh yeah, what happens if you do this? Does it do something if you do this?
But that's my back door.
Okay.
So I don't have a lunchroom. I never eat lunch here, so I didn't.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, and the dinner room is obviously your dressing room at the theater. I play August Rackinger in Water for Elephants. If you've read the book, it's the last name was changed. Then that's a question for Rick Ellis. August Rackinger is the circus ringleader. But I also actually play a second character called Charlie, and Charlie is a modern day version of the circus management. August, though, is my main event, and he is doing his best to keep a circus together and his employees fed during the 30s, which, as we all can reflect on, and not personally, but our ancestors went through a pretty hard time here in the 30s after the stock market crash and what they called the dirty 30s. So it was hard to earn a buck.
Very nice.
I'll read a question, Greg.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Water for Elephants is based on Sarah Gruen's book, who I haven't met yet, by the way. I know she was around a little bit in Atlanta.
Her. Yeah, I met her. I didn't meet her at the opening when she came for that, but I
didn't even see her.
She was at that rehearsal when we rehearsed. That'd be something to talk about.
Maybe
we rehearsed Queens, that big run through or whatever that was.
She was there?
She was there.
Yeah, I didn't meet her. I think she avoided me.
You scared her.
Maybe I personified August too well for her.
Right.
But you haven't met her yet, and obviously she's legendary.
She's lovely, and she's lovely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the book is so popular that my mother had talked about it years ago, before this was ever even in the imagination of a Broadway show. Anyway, it is based on her book Water for Elephants,
Mhm.
which is also made into a movie. Greg, how well did you know the story before auditioning and signing on to do this?
I sort of I hadn't read the book, and I had sort of I think I dropped in to see, like flipping the channels, I saw a little bit of the movie at some point, and I somehow someone told me the storyline basically, and I was
Okay,
like, oh, and that's all I knew about it when I went to audition.
okay.
Yeah. What about
Did
you?
you did you read the script for the musical before you did, or did you read your sides and kind of just base your audition initially on that?
It kind of half and half, because I don't know how it was for you, but I had a lot of material. You
Yeah,
know
you
how it
do a
is when
lot.
you have a lot well, the audition packet had a lot of material. And
Yeah,
so I was, you kind of figure out how much time you have between the present and when you have to go in for
yeah,
the audition. And you go, do I
yes.
have the time to read the whole script? Because also musical scripts can be hard to read
hmm
because they have a lot of theatrical devices, theatrical elements that are spoken of or that are somehow suggested by the way the script is, written. But so you could actually, it's like, almost like a movie script. You find yourself going down the rabbit hole, going, "What does that really look like, and what is it going to be?" And it actually is a rabbit hole that doesn't really help your performance, creating a
hmm
character. Because
Yeah.
when we're competing at this level for roles, you really have to sort of show up with kind of your take on what you would do with the role, as opposed
Hmm
to just sort of showing up and winging it. So anyway, so I didn't know it that well, but I read most of the script, but then I got to the point where I was like, I got to get to work on these lines.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
And so then I jumped into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't know the book. I hadn't read the book, and I'd not seen the movie. And I'm pretty glad that I hadn't seen the film
Mm.
when I was offered the show, because I don't. Christoph Waltz played the role that I play in the film, and he's kind of extraordinary at charisma slash menace.
Mm.
And had I seen his version of doing that, I don't know that I could have easily found my own quickly.
Mhm.
It took long enough anyway. But had I had Christoph Waltz, it'd be like, I'd have that little judgment guy on my shoulder going, "You're not good enough," the
Yeah.
whole time, because he's just so, so, so good. I mean, I always
And
think
the little guy would sound just like Christoph Waltz.
he would. He
Yeah.
does actually. That's no
He
matter
would
what role I
go,
play, it's Christoph
and
Waltz going, "You're not good enough. You are not
and
good
when you
enough."
do something good, he goes, "Bingo! That's a bingo."
Oh, we've got to send that impression to Christoph Waltz and
Yeah.
see how well it reflects him. So no, I hadn't had but so I read the book once I knew I was doing it,
Yeah.
and quite honestly, it terrified me to play August. It's been a few roles in a row for me in New York that were complicated men,
Mm. Yeah.
and it's really fun. It's really fun. It's probably the most fun, but it can be so exhausting.
Yeah.
And you kind of just want to be. Eventually, you kind of want to play someone people like again.
Yeah.
But I'll ride this roller coaster. If this is how I have to, feed myself, then I will do it. But somehow I'm that guy suddenly.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
I'll take
I've
it. I mean, it's a compliment. I
Interesting you're talking about complicated characters. I find that my character is kind of complicated in a different way, and
yes.
he's got a lot of baggage that that needs to sort of be there, and when it's required in the storytelling, it has to just be able to kind of come up. So I
Yeah.
can't just be like backstage,
So did
sort of
this?
like, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm curious about that because I've always wanted to talk to you about your career in acting, and I know we might take a right turn here, but was that something that was in the source material? Because I can't remember. To me, that was the most compelling part of the book, was your character's journey and the
Mhm.
idea of aging and being discarded as we age, and not being, our wisdom not being important to a younger generation. Or so did you discover that stuff as you processed Jacob,
I
Mr.
did,
Jankowski, or
interest
did you feel it was there intellectually already?
it's, this is a little bit another little sidestep. It's an acting thing where, and I'm sure you've been in this situation where you're in a rehearsal with people, and then the actor will say, I don't think my character would say that.
Right.
And I'm always like thinking, that's actually an important clue that you haven't figured out quite what the author intends
Mm,
for your character to be.
mm.
You know what I mean? There are a
Yeah,
lot of
I
common points
absolutely
between
know.
the characters we play and ourselves, and that's nurturing soil to start the creation of the character from. But those are always really good clues for me. My point of my story is that when I read the novel, and there's a scene in the novel pretty early on, it might actually be the first time we see him, or because it's a sort of a flashbacky novel. So
Yeah.
you visit with him and then you go to the past. It might be the first scene or the second time that we see him. And he like attacks the guy in the
Oh,
cafeteria.
yeah, of
I
the
mean,
old age home.
oh yeah.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
he just the first time I saw that, I was going, wait a minute, wait, what? Because by that point I'd already read the script and I worked on the character a bit and for the audition. And I was like, what is this? What is this left turn, to use your vernacular? I was like, but that was something that I was like, so there's a lot going on here. This guy is very complicated. I've actually spent a pretty good amount of time in my life dealing with older people, being in nursing homes, visiting nursing homes from my friends and relatives. I've seen this thing happen where
Mm.
there's an anger that happens, when they lose
Mm.
control.
Yeah.
And it's startling, but it's not, oh, he's crazy. It's like, no, it's the anger of losing control of your life when you were a perfectly independent person for 55, 65 years, and all of a sudden things start getting taken away from you.
Mm.
So the interesting thing, what you had said before about it, it's a complicated character. I think it's a complicated character, and it creates a challenge for me because I can do a little as we move down the road of the run. I can do a little backstage babble, bantery, whatever. But I really find myself like when I get going to, there are certain scenes where I think the cast is already like learning, the rest of the cast, they're already like, oh yeah, no, we don't talk to Greg now because Greg's like, because I have to kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of get into that space
Well,
so
this is
that,
what I love so much about your performance. And, I think it's dangerous for actors to talk to each other about each other's performances. But I will say it's one, we're very lucky in this production of Water for Elephants to have as good an actor as you are, because I don't know. I think I think our show would greatly suffer without the complexities you've brought to it, the subtlety, the nuance, and the care. I wish everybody could see what you did through the process and how much you took your time to care. You took the space to care, and I love that about you, Greg. I worship you. I've been listening to you for my whole life on cast albums. It's crazy.
your mom would put on
No, not
a
my mom,
City of
but,
Angels album in
like,
your
somehow,
nursery.
like, I grew up on a farm. I forgot to mention that I am dressed in kind of my farm or lumberjack gear as usual, with a down-filled vest, and my hair's already parted for the show tonight because I have very finicky hair, and if I don't do it 4 hours before the show, it will never look good for the show. Anyway, I did not grow up listening to cast albums other than Chess, Les Mis, and Phantom, which we had the LPs of. Somehow, my dad had interest in the arts, even isolated there in Saskatchewan on the farm. So it was when I got to Toronto and started going to school and would visit the Toronto Public Library, where they had a huge collection of CDs of
Huh.
shows that I'd never heard of before. So I
Yeah.
got to take out City of Angel. I got to take out all these albums, And so there are certain strains in the show where I hear you sing, I'm like, oh my God, it's like being transported back in time.
You know, it's funny. When I was growing up,
To keep us on track here.
yeah, I know we're getting a little nudge, but I just want to respond.
Yeah.
You know, when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money at all, and we lived in a tiny apartment. My brother and my mother and I, and my grandmother, and we had a record player, but we had only 6 records. She never would buy anymore.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was one of those things we didn't have the money for it and stuff.
Yeah.
But we had we had a strange collection of Jackie Gleason's Music for Lovers Only, things like
Oh,
that. Errol Garner, who's a great jazz pianist. But we had Take Me Along, the recording of Take Me Along,
uh-huh.
and we had God, what's the other one? We had Flower Drum Song.
Oh my goodness. That's so
And those were
cool.
the shows. So when I was younger, I'd be going chop suey, chop suey. Living here is very much like chop suey. And and people are going, what is that? I'm going, oh, it's from Flower Drum Song.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I didn't have a lot of albums either until when I got into high school. I fell into doing some theater, and my teachers were like, "Here, take these albums home and listen to this stuff." So Anyway, let's see. I'll read this one. So here's a little question for you. The musical centers on a traveling circus, and it does feature some unbelievable acrobatics. It's so funny. There's a scene in the show where I'm supposed to be watching everybody, and they're cheering me up with this great memory. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have to act this at all. I just have to look around and watch these amazing young people do all this stuff every night.
Yeah.
It's no acting required. They're just unbelievable. Anyway, my question to you, Paul, is have you picked up any tricks? Sorry, my phone's pinging. I'm very famous.
You're very famous and very important, Greg.
In my own mind. Anyway, have you picked up any tricks from the circus pros in the cast?
Well, fun fact, if anybody's seen the show yet, there was a section of my first act song where I learned a terrifying trick. But we cut it from the show. What it was is that they call it the salto, and the salto stands, I think now that I've been around long enough, the salto is not the trick itself, but the salto is the position of the porters or the guys throwing and catching with their hands. So they create this kind of platform, Sam and Nico and Harley, if he's on, create this platform in their hand. I stood on their hands, which I still do now, but they would throw me in the air and I'd perform a somersault and land in their arms. And this actually was, I've said, here's why this paid off. It helped me bond with the circus people. And as you know, our cast has musical theater people and circus people. And, coming together to become one family, one act together. And so that for me built so much. I trusted them anyway because I was watching what they were doing, and my crappy version of the trick, it was crawling compared to sprinting in the Olympics.
Yeah, but still, you should tell the folks at home that you are also doing this salto, whatever it's called. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. But you were also doing it while singing. Go singing high notes and lots of lyrics, and you're just look at me, I'm so confident, da da dee da da, and you're on top of people's hands. It's you go, Paul. I was really impressed with you.
Well, it was fun to bond with them and to to have the experience. It's a little if you're shooting the season 1 of Band of Brothers, going to boot camp. You get to actually feel what it's like in a way to be them.
I had a little bit of that with that one thing I do. I mean, it helped with the bonding, but I have this thing that I guess they call it the spooky bark.
Yes.
And I'm I do a thing with like they're all around me, right next to me, and they're all like kind of, at the very beginning. Well, first of all, they're all around me, and I do something with a cane, and then I do something with a knife, and I have to put it in the right place
Hmm.
so that who does that? Is that Keaton who catches it? I
Yeah,
never
Keaton
look.
catches. Yeah, Keaton
I
catches it.
don't see
That's right.
because it's a blind drop of a
Yeah.
knife. And it's supposed to anyway. When we first, it did help me build because that's the first time I really talked to a lot of the folks. It would be like,
Yeah.
hi, and then we would just start working. But
Yeah.
this gave me a chance to talk to them and get to know them. And when we first started doing the spooky bark, they really kept their distance, so they never would touch me.
Mm.
I don't know whether they were thinking I was fragile or whatever. But as time has gone on, there's always like a hand, a fist, something. They're like using me to like lean against,
Hmm.
for the
Hmm.
day in and day outness
Yeah.
of all of their acrobatics that they're doing around
Yeah.
me. That
Yeah.
wasn't there at the beginning, and I always
Yeah.
kind of go, "Oh, that's kind of cool." They're kind of like leaning on me. I kind
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Yeah, trust, like any cast, a trust and a comfort builds between people over time. It's really
Hey,
cool
you know
what
what?
makes
There
you.
was one other suggestion of a question here was like, is there some feat in the show that you wish you could do?
Some feat, like if I was good at it, I would love to be
Yes.
able to do what Alex does, which is they throw her in there really high. Alex flips backwards and lands on her hands in their hands. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
that's crazy.
The feat that scares me the most to watch, I don't even watch it, is when they do the three high. So someone's standing on another person's shoulders and then someone standing on their
Oh, yeah,
shoulders.
right.
What's that? I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
Well, that's again, that was something that I used to be in that scene,
Hmm.
and the point of the scene was like sort of a circus creation version of my imagination of,
Yes.
some characters having some bad things happen to them.
Yeah.
And it was another one of these moments where I was like, so, Jess was always our director, Jessica Stone, wonderful director, wonderful lady, and she like kind of let me go. She was like, well, basically, it's so watch it, and there's some sort of sense of horror, but see what happens for you. And
Mm.
again, I was like, I I feel horror because they're all the way up 20
Yeah.
feet on top. They're climbing on each other's, uh, you know, on their hands and shoulders and all this craziness. And it
Yeah.
was very easy to feel peril,
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
moment. So, yeah, I was thinking it was the one that I would love to do is the one that Alex does later in Act Two in Zostan, where she just gets
Oh
thrust
yeah.
into the air.
Like a flying squirrel.
Oh my God. I'd love to do that, like for my birthday, although I think I'm
Visit
probably
Cirque
what
House.
that's right.
Yeah.
I'm probably too,
So they
heavy.
say they say never to work with children or animals, Greg, as an
Yeah.
actor.
Right.
And we work with instead.
Good
Oh,
afternoon. It's 4:30. Come on
something's
down
happening at
for
4:30.
our horse clarity.
We work with eye-popping puppet animals. What's that
Yes, we
like?
do.
Do you work with any puppets directly? Like, do you have to manipulate any of them?
Yeah, I do Queenie.
Oh yes, yes,
I
yes.
do
That's the
Queenie.
dog.
And I also hand off Queenie to Joe at one
Yeah,
point, plays
yeah,
Walter.
yeah.
So I do a little bit of that. And I enjoy that a lot. I sort of get into that. That's kind of a stuff that I love,
Cool.
you know. Um,
Yeah, I don't do any of the work with the puppets myself. I interacted. Of course, my character is very, very much disliked by the elephant because I
yeah,
am not nice to Rosie the elephant.
right, right.
So I have to say that the work that Caroline does on the trunk of Rosie, and then several of our other actors who operate the body of the puppet, it's amazing. Like watching that animal move really does feel like a real elephant to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, it's true. The interesting thing that my experience with Queenie is actually different than Joe's. And Joe, who plays Walter, that's his dog in the show.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this, that how hard it was. When I operate Queenie, I do the classic sort of, I look at the puppet the entire time.
Mm.
So that is very much like Avenue Q, where they don't
Oh,
the audience, if the audience, naturally the audience will look at me because I'm manipulating, the dog.
yes. Yeah.
But if I'm doing anything other than sort of blankly looking at the dog, I'll be interesting to look at. And you want everybody just to look at the dog.
Right. Oh,
Ruff,
interesting.
ruff, ruff, ruff.
Yeah.
But Joe's was different. Joe's experience was he needed to do everything he needed to do while letting Queenie be alive and watching him and doing stuff. And, because sometimes he has to say, hey, Queenie, cut it out. So he has to incorporate into his dialogue and responding to people, Queenie doing this, and then, hey, what are you doing? So it's kind of, he's got a whole vaudeville act going on there.
A little like ventriloquism.
Yeah.
Almost,
yeah. It's a much different experience than that I have. But it's very cool. I like, I'm with you.
I was impressed when Ken Wolf Clark was on last week, how good he was at the puppet, because he also, like Grant Gustin, who plays Jacob, and he was on for Jacob last week. And I thought, I wonder how the puppet's going to be, because that stuff takes so much time to make good, to make it so good that it's second nature. And he really was pulling it off.
That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, so you do a little ditty in the show called
which one?
The Lion Has Got No Teeth.
Oh, that old chestnut.
Yes.
Yes.
And it celebrates, I guess. Celebrate, is that the word? Celebrate? But it certainly explores the what the power of lies is like. I guess you are celebrating it, aren't you? Because
I guess so.
You are celebrating because it's a way that you under the guise of although it's not on our show, but where is it sort of in our show? There's a sucker born every minute. There's a lyric that
that's cut. Remember that? Yeah. Don't you know there's a sucker who's born every minute?
Oh, that's
a good thing too, because otherwise we'd be screwed. Yeah, it was that part of that verse was cut, which was a direct quote from Barnum.
Barnum, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so oh my gosh, here we go. What's the silliest lie you've ever told?
Sometimes we get these questions in advance just so we can have thought about them, and I almost never read them, but I happened to actually read through these questions yesterday, and I thought, I don't quite know. Like, I remember a horrible lie I told when I was a kid, but I'm not telling it on television. It didn't hurt anybody, but it was just dishonest in a way that wasn't good.
Well, the nature of a lie is dishonesty, and I'm like going, maybe it's because I'm an actor and I know how to try to package away. You have a good performance, you have a bad performance, you take it and you go put it in the back pocket. Move on. It's also being an actor. You used to have bad auditions, lots, or at least a lot of auditions that don't have positive outcomes for you. Getting with the job. And so because of that, talk about being able to like just wipe the slate clean and move on. So I'm kind of going lies.
Sociopaths.
Of course, it also might be because I'm like my certain delicate age that I might not be remembering things I might have in past.
But you're a very pure man, Greg. You're very, very especially pure. I did think of a lie that I told that nobody believed me, but they let me think they did. And as I mentioned just slightly earlier, I grew up working on a farm, so I had to do farm work. And when you're a kid, I don't think any kid wants to feel like they have to do anything they don't want to. I look back at my chores as a child and a young person and a teenager, and I love them. I romanticize it. I think, if only I could be weeding literally 3 miles of weeds. I'm not joking. I used to have to weed 3 miles of trees by hand using a hoe.
What?
Yep, because we were building. Well, anyway, this is
what did you do to irritate your parents that they?
Well, I was young and they were teaching me how to work hard. But there was one weekend, and there was no plan. It was just like you wake up on a Saturday and your father has decided that you are working today, when in fact you thought in your mind, I'm going to get to go play with my friends. So my sister and I were put on duty to scrape and peel the paint off my grandmother's garage. And this is
Is this
back in
Tom
the day when-
Sawyer territory here?
Pretty much. So we're scraping the paint off my grandmother's garage. It's dusty paint. The paint is lead-based, and yes, I knew that it was. It's like, oh, great. And even I was smart enough to know that that wasn't good for us.
Yeah.
We're scraping it off, and it's very dusty. And I don't have asthma, but I do have allergies, so I'm starting to get a little bit heavy-chested. And so I thought, I'm going to embellish this and get out of working. So I slowly started embellishing the wheeze.
Oh, sure.
And by lunchtime, the wheeze was significant. And, I was, I had to stay home. But now, because I'm an adult now, I know that they knew I was faking it. My sister had to go back and work alone. But they said, well, you should go to bed for a few hours and see if you feel better. Instead of going to bed, I went out and played with my friends, of course. And my dad came back to look for me. And I wasn't there. So they knew that I was full of it. So that is what yeah, I mean, I was practicing. It was probably something like this. Here's a demo.
Very good.
No, I'm probably okay to go.
Well, now you can't use it at
my
the
sister
show.
never let me forget it.
When you want to show off, you can't use that now.
That's right. What about you, Greg?
You know what? I'm trying to think. I'm sure I did some stupid lie somewhere along the line, but I certainly do. I certainly have done my share of fibbing in terms of like, hey, who ate that? And I'd be like, I didn't eat that. And I'm sure I've done a lot of that.
Now I know who to blame.
Yeah.
I know.
It's completely like, like, especially around Thanksgiving, I am just leftovers. I'm a total fiend for cold stuffing or dressing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I will plow through, a plate of dressing. And
for me, it's the soup. I like the soup more than the meal when you make the soup.
Oh, sure.
Speaking of soup, Greg, things go. Is it? I'm going to try. Things go wrong from time to time in shows, and audiences always love to know the great mishaps. Now, ours has circus. Like, I don't know if there's any mishaps that were funny to do with the circus in our show, but if there, I know personally I've entertained Grant and Izzy a lot with my screw ups. Can you think of any screw ups that you would think an audience would find funny or entertaining?
You mean, that have happened, you mean?
Yeah, so far in Water for Elephants, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Something did happen. I'm having one of those moments again where I go, that was the thing. Oh, it was so funny. I can't remember it. God.
I mean, there was a couple of weeks ago when I had to use steroids. I had to go on prednisone for my voice, and they made me feel a little funny. And I maybe it was anyway. They made me feel a little bit odd. It felt a little off.
They can.
And like, when you do something over and repeat it and over and over and over again, you start to the memory starts to go into like long-term memory. So you don't have to this is where I like to get to as an actor, actually.
Yeah.
So that's in long-term memory. You're not thinking about what do I say next?
Right.
What word is that? You get past that. And then you can start thinking about observing what's Greg thinking right now, or why is Greg's hair like that? And you actually start behaving and talking like a real human and thinking like a real human. But the problem with it is, once in a while, a thing happens that you think, why do I know these lines? What is next? And you start thinking about your lines literally again, and they're gone.
They're gone, baby.
So what happened when I was on the steroid is it made me feel like I was just observing things like slightly differently. So everything felt a little bit like I was born again, and like, what is going to happen next? So in Lion Has No Teeth, I'm rolling along as usual, and I lose my lyric. So the lyric becomes me scatting for a phrase and a half. It felt like about 10 minutes of me scatting. And in fact, it was a phrase.
Yeah.
So it was, It was in the second verse. I wish. How can I muster that? Like doing things out of order is almost impossible for me.
Right.
But between it's the moment where I go. It's leading into the introducing the version, like the lyric lies, but I end up going lies, 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 lies. It's not good it seems, and the delight that it gives our fellow actors.
Oh
when
God,
we
yeah.
screw up is, you can't deny. Like it's horrific for you. You see yourself shooting cold sweat.
I hate
But
it.
that it's so much fun for your fellow actors to see you wiggle out of trouble.
Well, I was
Grant
remembering
was, like, laughing.
the thing that came to mind for me was the night when I was just bopping along, just doing the scene. Bop, bop, bop. I have a song that goes into a scene where I have like a issue, and I'm like, and I'm supposed to order my food that I want, and I didn't say pot roast, I said roast beef.
That's right, roast beef.
And I was like, the moment I said, yeah, I want roast beef
So
for
committed.
2. And I was like, holy shit. And I was going, wait a minute. And now the scene's continuing along. Everybody's eyes are like kind of like getting a little wider on stage. And I'm continuing the dialogue going, though, I think I say that what I'm ordering again later. Yeah, I say my food. So I have to say it again. Wait, what's that next line? Okay, and I said that line. Okay, what's okay? So I have to say roast beef later in the scene. Okay. That's all going on while we're like, oh yeah, I'm doing a scene, and inside you're like going
rerouting. You're GPS
and then
rerouting.
the next time it comes up, it's like, oh yeah, that's the moment that I scream it. I want roast beef, and I was like, I have to say. I hope I don't make everybody laugh. I want roast beef. And of course, it turned into backstage when I went backstage for like days. People were like, hey, Greg, do you want roast beef? And it was like, it started this whole like running thing of like, hey, you could do a different food every night. That'd be fun. And I said, well, you mean like hibachi salmon? I want hibachi salmon. Anyway, God.
Yeah, the industry is full of these, and the recalculating. I did a production of Oklahoma once where someone, the auction scene in Oklahoma is a nightmare to put together, and it just goes like it only works if you're going like a bat out of hell. And the guy that's supposed to, he has one line in the entire show, and he gave me the wrong value, so I had to do the math in my head on an obscure number so that the auction added up to the right number. He owed me a case of beer.
Oh,
I played poorly.
Oh gosh, there's a lot of good stories like that. Being introduced to the circus changes the main character's life. Yes, it does. Did being introduced to theater have a similar impact on you in your youth? What about you? It certainly took you away from the farm, man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a perfect question for me because my access to the arts was, not unlimited, but it was very limited where I grew up. Not only, like I grew up in a really unpopulous province in Canada called Saskatchewan. And then to add to that, I grew up in a town of fewer than 500 people. That's the whole town. So my school was 180 from kindergarten to grade 12. I had the largest class at 17. So, these kinds of communities, you can't, they're not like these high schools that have 3,000 kids and you've got a program for the arts and specifically musical theater and then the sports program. I mean, you only had access to what was already really there. And if you're lucky, you have a teacher who is interested in plays. And we actually did have some teachers who we'd put on a play or a musical once you got to grade 7 all the way through grade 12. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't think, oh, I've got talent. It was not until I was convinced to take singing lessons in the big city, Regina, Saskatchewan. No, you did hear that correctly. Regina. It would be the way I would pronounce it because it is a Latin word for queen. But I had access to this singing teacher who made me realize, well, I enjoy this and I have a talent for this. Led to theater. So that was like what marijuana is to cocaine.
Well,
That's, everyone who does marijuana does cocaine, right, Greg?
that's how it was with me.
I guess this is part of the interview we cut out in the editing. So I'm going to back up. That was for me the stepping stone into theater.
Yeah.
And so the impact on me couldn't be valued enough, because not that I was lost, but I mean, I was a talented athlete-ish, average to kind of talented. I played a lot of hockey, and loved it. But it wasn't until I was introduced to the arts community that I really, like Jacob Jankowski in our show, joining the circus, felt like I was home. And I'm not being cheesy when I say that. I really felt like, oh, this is my family. These are my people. I love sports, but the sports community weren't my people. I'm too gentle for that, and too sensitive for.
It's funny. I grew up in a much different situation. It was a populous suburb of Chicago. Each of our classes, the high school had like 2,000 people, so each class was like 500 people. So we had a great theater program and stuff. But I had learned earlier in like junior high that I could sing well, and I didn't know it, but I could sing well, and I got like a couple solos, at the chorus concerts and stuff in junior high. But I really didn't do anything with performing in high school. I was a swimmer, and I was on the track team.
Oh, really?
And neither of those attract any spectators, or most specifically, female students. So it was always kind of like, we were like the dorky sports. Oh yeah, I'm a high jumper. Oh yeah, what do you go over backwards? And I'm like, yeah, I go over backwards. So anyway, and then I went to an afternoon a performance. The school had a theater, and they did Bye Bye Birdie, and I went to see it. And because I know why, because the guy who was our decathlete on the team was like in Bye Bye. He was Birdie. Okay. And so he starts doing, oh baby, one let's get, and the whole crowd, the crowd around me is going, yeah, woo, oh my gosh, Ron, he's so wonderful. And I was like, I can do that. So because I could sing, I was like, I can do it. Maybe I'll finally meet a girl, because I was like, I don't know. And literally that's why I went into the theater, just to maybe sing a bit and to maybe get a girlfriend. And I quickly discovered what you said. I discovered a whole family. It was, I had a, not to get too deep into it, but my family life was very complicated, very stressful, very, a lot of, it was a divorce, and there was a lot of stuff like that. And to find a community that was like, hey, welcome, Greg. And, the theater was open all the time, all day. So when I had a free period, I wouldn't go to the lunchroom. I'd go backstage, and there would be like, all sorts of folks who, whether it was technical folks or actors, singers, whatever. And we would just start talking and sharing stories. And it really brought me out of my shell. I was a very shy person. I know it sounds maybe a little hard to think now, but I was very shy. I guess I still am shy. When push comes to shove, I'd rather just sit in the corner and just, whatever, do spelling bee or Wordle. Yeah. Anyway. Oh,
that's cool.
Do we want to talk about anything else?
Oh, well, I mean, I do want to know, how often do you go to the TKTS booth often, and what's the best deal you ever got there? Did you know that they just celebrated their 50th anniversary?
I didn't know that, but I do know that, my gosh, well, it's 50. I'm trying to do the math really quick. That's interesting. I have gotten, in the old days, I think now you can charge, but in the old days. Hey, Mark. But you know, in the old days, it was always cash. You had to show up with cash, you know, and it was pretty, and it
Okay.
wasn't really, wasn't really, I don't know how it works now. I do go there, but I know it's so much more streamlined than it used to be. You know, you can use credit card, the lines move so quickly. It's really a great deal. I've gotten some amazing seats at TDF, I have to say. You know, some amazing, I mean, sometimes, you know, depending upon what it is, most of the time you'd probably get these great seats for a play that people don't know is great, but it's really great, but it's just not
Yeah.
selling. And all of a sudden you get, you know, a seat like 6 rows up, 2, 3 seats over from the aisle, you know, going
Yeah.
towards the wall. And you're like going,
Yeah.
this is an amazing seat, you know? So
That's
you
awesome.
know, yeah, there are great deals to be had there. And of course, it's a great thing for young people. Of course, now they have student rush stuff, so students can
Yeah,
get deals
that's
other
good.
ways. But
That's
yeah,
good.
the tickets booth, I've been going there since I got to the city in '83. I've been going there. Oh my gosh, that's a
For
long
40
time.
years, Greg. That's 40 years.
40
40.
years.
Yeah.
And I love the, you know, the big, for me, and actually a lot of other people too, they talk about the fact that they've opened up other locations was such a massive thing.
Mm,
Because when you had to
mm,
like go to Times Square to get your ticket, if you didn't live in Times Square or near Times Square, it was like, you know, oh, I got to get in
right.
line early to pick up
Yeah.
something. And, you know, so,
Do
you
you
know,
know, I think I haven't gone to the TKTS booth a lot, but I think I got my first show that I ever saw on Broadway from the TKTS booth,
oh, really? What was that?
which, believe it or not, was Fosse. I got a standing room only
Mhm.
ticket, and I think I paid 20 or 40 bucks. And it
Mhm.
was the first show I'd ever seen. I was blown. I loved it. I
Yeah.
just loved it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
My first
oh,
show I ever saw was when I came to town with, a spring break from when I was in college, which a group of us from the theater department came and we basically entertained for that the alum association so we
yeah.
could raise money.
Yeah.
And I went and saw a play called Wings. Have you ever heard of that play,
No, but
Wings?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a play with Constance Cummings. Yeah,
Okay.
she was, and she played a woman who was had been one of those one of those plane wing walkers when she was
Oh, wow.
very young, but now she's very old and she's sort of having you know, Alzheimer's. And
Okay.
so perception of what's real, what's not, what's happening. I've
Mhm.
always found that a fascinating topic to explore. There was
Mm.
another play many years later called Einstein and the Polar Bear uh, that was also explored the idea of, you know, a parent sort of drifting away and what are they really thinking and are they there? And of course, the theatrical world can actually explore, you know, delve into what that person's really thinking, even though we
Mhm.
don't think they're there anymore, but they're absolutely there. They're just sort of trapped in their body.
Mhm.
Anyway, that was the first show I ever saw, Wings.
Wings.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Cool.
What was something came up? What is that?
This is my favorite question, and I'm making you go first because I thought about it and I've got casting decisions made about you.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, and I'm not
Holy.
influencing you with my brilliant answers, okay?
Oh God,
The question is like, what role would we put each other in if we were casting?
you know what I would like to see though, because I've seen you do, because you know why? Because you know, the interesting thing about your two roles you perform in the show is that
Yeah.
they're very different. And the one character that you played, Charlie, and it's a much smaller role. Obviously, your main role is August, but I mean, you have such and this sort of goes back to what you were saying about, boy, I'd be nice to play something else, you know, other than like the villain or the whatever, the hostile element to a show. I would love to see you play something that was just lovely and full of heart and a caring soul. You know, something that comes to mind, which is not, it's not a considered, it's just what's bubbling up. I'd like to see you do George and She Loves Me, you know.
Ah, yay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'd love to see
Cool.
you do that because you're so, I'd love to see more of that, you know, because it's not just a wash of like, hi, I'm nice. I'm Gene, you
Mhm,
know,
mhm,
a nice
mhm,
fellow. You
mhm.
really, you do as much detail with Charlie as you do with August. And I'd love to see this creative creature that you are take those roles that sometimes just get a wash
Right.
of energy or choices. And
Right.
I'd like to see what interesting stuff bubbles up from you, in a role like that. I don't know. Yeah.
When's the last time they did that show in New York? Even off Broadway, I wonder.
I think they did it. They did that revival at Roundabout with who's that actor? That really nice guy.
Not Jonathan Groff.
No. He's the guy who plays Shazam. You know that?
Oh
superhero?
yes, of course.
Zach Levy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Zach Levi.
Yeah, Levi.
Levi.
I don't know. Yeah, Regina. I
That's-
don't know.
Regina.
Let's call the whole thing Zach.
You say tomato, I say tomato. So I loved thinking about this question because my first answer was like, oh, I want to see Greg do. We might have even talked about this. The John Lithgow character in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Oh yeah, I don't know that show very well.
It's really good. It's a really good show, and the two roles are great, as is the female lead. But then I started thinking more about it, and I thought, it's a little easier to talk about like how we cast people through Shakespeare because the archetypes are so clear. So I started casting you in King Lear, and I started off as Kent, and I'm like, but wait, how interesting would Greg Edelman be as Cornwall? Because you'd think, what a nice looking man, and then you gouge someone's eyes out, and then but also like or Gloucester, you would feel such a endearing Gloucester. So this is why I think you're such a great actor, is because all three parts, we could pick the names out of the hat. And you'd have to play that part this evening because there's nothing more sinister. Like, I mean, you taking Christoph Waltz as an example in that movie, Inglourious Bastards, in that first 20-minute scene where he just smiled the whole time, but you knew he was so dangerous. And that's what I would love to watch you do as something very different from what I've experienced of you.
Yeah.
Because you could do it.
I do enjoy that. How
would you cast yourself? Like, what would you want to, if you could just like cast yourself in something that you desire or something you never thought you'd get a chance to do?
Well, you know what? I'd like to get a crack at doing Sweeney again. I did it once, and because of the situation, I've learned more about what I would do with it now. We were trying something and it didn't quite work. And so I would want to embrace sort of the elements of melodrama, which is what, and thriller and all that. That it really craves, it really wants to be that. It's written that way. That's how it operates dramatically. And that's why it always looks like it looks, it's this weird macabre kind of, thriller thing. And so I'd like another crack at that. What about you?
Well, funny enough, Sweeney is a dream role, but I don't really I shouldn't say this live because, someone may want to cast me as Sweeney one day. I would have to start smoking, I think, to regularly have girth on the low end of it.
Oh yeah,
but
right.
The engine of it, I just love. So, I would love to play Sweeney. I'm more probably well cast as George in Sunday in the Park. But another dream role is Floyd and Floyd Collins. I'm very attracted to things that are exploring death. Because I think what I'm drawn to most is a theme in what I like to do when I'm acting is transformation. And so that I've always wanted to do, but nobody does it. I'm not entirely sure why, but I would like to do that for things that are already written. But I'm having a really good time getting to do things that haven't been written.
Yes,
and that we
right,
get to invent for the first time.
which is nice.
Yeah.
You know, now that I'm thinking about this, I would like to just before we wrap up, you know what I really, and I think about this often, especially probably because been the Vanya revival. I really want to do some Chekhov, you know,
Mm,
and I'd rather whether it's Trigorin or you know, Astrov maybe. I just am craving to do something like that. I feel
mm,
like I've learned enough now that I could actually, you know, bring something to it, you know.
mm,
So, and that's kind of my world about some of you had said before about you're always trying, you'd like to have a new challenge, you know, do something different than you.
yeah.
That's when people say, what do you want to do next or something? And it's like, whatever it is, I want it to be different from this. So it
Yes.
would not be
Yes.
this, probably wouldn't be a musical even,
Yeah.
you know, it would be a movie or a play
Yeah.
or directing, which I love directing. I direct, you know, I haven't directed in a couple of years now because of COVID.
I'll
But I
follow
mean,
you. I'll go act for you, Greg.
I would hire you in a second.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. And
Um,
thank you.
yeah.
And I think
Well,
we're wrapping this up. Hey, you know what? Let's thank all the TDF fans for
yes.
watching us. And
Yes.
we hope that we, you know, gave you a little, you know, a little something to watch for a while, enjoyed, and maybe learn a little something about our lives. And we hope that we see you if you're in town. Come by the Imperial Theater and see Water for Elephants because we love doing it, and it seems to really touch the audiences. And it's and of course with the circus element, it's just a staggeringly entertaining evening at the theater.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think the same. I think it's one of the most unique things I've been a part of in commercial theater. The marriage of the acrobatics with story is really exciting because it could have just been a bunch of tricks, and it's not. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and we're both really glad to be part of it. So maybe come over to the Imperial Theater and take a peek. Would love to see you. And you know what? We'll come out. We'll sign some autographs. Tell us if you were watching, if you saw us on the TDF chat here. We'd love to meet some of you face to face. So thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.